Welcome to Industry Insights. Thank you for joining us today. Today's episode is Pivot to Profit, How to Win in Real Estate Investing Today. So it is my pleasure to introduce our special guests today. I am going to start with Justin Sakari. Justin is a high volume realtor based out of Arizona. He holds his degrees in finance and marketing from U of A and has different experience from several aspects of real estate. And we're talking residential planning, development for home builders, commercial real estate, multifamily. He's dedicated his career to being an agent in the residential resale market. And he enjoys also employing his marketing background to help people sell their homes quickly. Selling them quickly for top dollar, employing his finance background to help people with their investment properties. So he has an extensive knowledge of the Arizona region to help people find their perfect home or investment home. And fun fact about Justin, in his spare time, you will find him spending time with his family, hiking, or of course, watching HGTV. So welcome, Justin. Next, we have Nate Butcher. Nate is joining us from eXp Realty. He has been named one of the top realtors in Southern California year after year since his career in early 2000. Nate developed a successful real estate practice through his personal production and team development. And although he is based out of California, he does operate across the US and has a national network of top realtors that he utilizes in finding investment properties. He is an expert in market trends, competition, public perception of the market, and he is also a prior member of the armed forces and an LA police officer. So his background gives him a pretty unique insight to the importance of relationships and a strong foundation for development of communities. We are thrilled to have you, Nate. And fun fact, this is actually very fun. I went to this show, Nate, and I did not have your luck. Nate won the Showcase Showdown on the TV game show The Price is Right back in the classic Bob Barker days. So that might be the funnest fact I've ever heard.
Agreed.
Welcome, Nate.
Thank you. Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, we have Rob Wiseman. Rob is a builder, developer, investor, realtor, broker, and teacher to investors on all things real estate investing. Rob is actually a Civic client, so he can actually share his really unique perspective in partnering with Civic. He is the founder of Urban Row Group. Urban Row Group specializes in acquiring and developing land for new single family and multifamily properties to provide both capital gains and stable cash flows. He is highly educated in the Houston real estate market, and his focus is in investment real estate. He's been a licensed Texas real estate broker since 2009 and in single family residential development for the past 10 years. Fun fact about Rob, he has volunteered for Rebuilding Together Houston and Habitat for Humanity for several years, and he actually plans to start his own housing related nonprofit. So kudos to you, Rob. Welcome. Okay, so now it is time to introduce Bill. Taking the mic today with our panel of experts is our very own Bill Tessar. Bill is our president and CEO of Civic, as you know. He has over 30 years of mortgage industry experience and previously founded and served as president of 3 different mortgage companies, taking the residential funding volume to surpass 35 billion. He recently just took Civic to surpass our own major milestones, and month over month on Industry Insights, it's pretty amazing because these milestones keep changing. He has now most recently brought us to surpass 13,000 loans funded, 6 billion funded in uh, funding history, and we funded 1 billion in 2020 alone, which is remarkable for the private lending space, period, but especially during the pandemic. And we have just continued to grow and grow. Um, Bill represents Civic as a Glassdoor top CEO. He has won the HousingWire Vanguard Award. And like I mentioned previously, he was the very first private lending executive to speak up out after COVID. So today he's going to share his industry insight, and tap into the knowledge of our panel of experts as well. So without any further ado, welcome to Bill Tessar. Over to you.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, team, for joining. Fired up. We have three like rock stars here today, and they cover what I think are three of the hottest markets across the map, in that California, Arizona, and Texas. And each one of these three I've either personally done business with or would have them handle my business. And I think that does mean something. There's plenty of great professionals across the states. These three particular, I think, bring something additional that all of you will benefit from. And I think, as is always my goal and objective in these industry insights, or any conference or blog that you participate in, it's all about just getting the one nugget, the one thing that you'll either stop doing or start doing that's going to change the way you think, you buy, or you sell real estate. So I'm 100% confident nobody on this call, we got a whole bunch of you, is going to walk out of here and not feel that you got that. What we're going to try to do is we're going to go about 40 minutes. I have a list of questions that I think you'll want to know the answers to. I'm going to bounce around from speaker to speaker, and then we're going to leave 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A. If we don't get everyone's Q&A, Gina will make sure we get your questions, get them answered, and then she's going to share the information of our three speakers afterwards. So if you want to get in contact personally, we'll do that. So listen, to start off, 2 minutes or less, give us an overview of where your market for your particular region is today. Nate, I'd like to start with you, and then Justin, I'll jump over to you, and then Rob. Nate, take it away.
Great, Bill. Thanks for being here. So our market today, I'm in Southern California, Los Angeles area, obviously LA County, super tight with the inventory. As we all know, that's kind of across the country. It's tight, but we are seeing it starting to open up a little bit. I think one of the things that when we're seeing, 10, 15 offers on a property, it seems like it's cool just where we'll see 2 or 3. Things are still selling, 6 to 10 days, but it does seem like maybe the hysteria right after that it happened right when people were cooped up so much kind of slowed down a little bit. So we got a little bit of time, but we're seeing a little bit of a cooling off, but still super aggressive out there.
Have you seen a big change, Nate, from the beginning of the year till now?
I saw a big change. I would say yes, if you consider a big change from just absolute panic buying on the residential side. Even the investors seem to be paying. You had to watch your investors and make sure they're not paying too much because they're trying to get this or that. So I've seen a cooling off, and I would consider that a big change in this market today. Not a big change in the industry standard, but as far as today, I that's been a change that I've seen it. Yes, I can feel it right now.
Okay, Justin, what about Arizona?
So a lot like what Nate was saying. I mean, the market has been absolutely crazy. In the last probably 90 to 120 days, we have seen inventory increase surprisingly under $1 million. So seen inventory come up actually 42% from January of this year to the last month in that $1,000 price range. Once we get above $1 million, the difference is negligible. Now it sounds like a big number, 42%. Sounds crazy, but when your inventory was like 1,000 homes, it's really not that much. We're just coming from such a crazy place that even though things are heading in the right direction and becoming more of a buyer's market, it's still extremely hot. We just went from 500 degrees Fahrenheit to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So
and you've seen that change from the beginning of the year till now?
Yeah, and mostly in the last 2 months, which makes me wonder if it's just a seasonal glitch for us. Obviously in Arizona, July and August aren't ideal. So we generally see a slowing this time of year. Be very curious to see what happens in September and October.
All right, thank you. What about Texas, Rob?
Texas, Bill, specifically Houston, is on fire from my perspective. Anything under $250,000 it doesn't stay on the market long. In fact, there's a shortage of inventory in that price range. I think what's happening in Houston and Texas in general is you have a lot of relocation. You have a lot of people from different parts of the country who are moving here just because of the economy, the job growth. Part of it had to do with COVID and the pandemic, where other states were impacted greatly. Houston and Texas just kept trucking along, fueled by construction. My specific market within Houston is closer to the city. And I'll just give you perspective. I built and sold a home recently. At the end of March, we closed for $399,000. The gentleman that bought that house ended up getting a job in New York, so he's relocating. He called me last week and said, "Hey, I'm relocating. I need to sell my house. What do you think I can get for it?" We listed that house, and within 2 hours had a cash offer for almost $470,000 for that house.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. And I think we could have got more, but inside there's certain markets or sub-markets within Houston that are just so insulated. There's not enough inventory. It's infill. So you're either, buying an old house, tearing it down and building, and, those properties don't stay on the market long. So, from our perspective, certainly in the areas that we're focused in, there's tons of opportunity, tons of business. We're just fortunate and hopeful that it'll continue to keep going in this direction.
You touched upon something that I'd like to highlight from my perspective. We have almost 400 employees at Civic. And for the first time in 37 years of lending, I'm now 100% convinced that you don't need all your employees under one roof. And we've just gone through a transformation process of what we call Civic Anywhere, where when we come out of this, I'm not talking about in COVID, I'm talking about out of COVID, we're going to end up having about a third of our workforce work full-time in the office, a third in hybrid, and a third from home. And what that's done for a whole bunch of our employees, and what you're seeing, Rob and Justin and Nate, and all across the nation, is people now don't have to commute 60 or 75 miles to get to their dream job. And they don't have to live in an area that might cost them more money than they'd like to pay. People are moving to places where the dollar stretches further, where maybe the area is more applicable to their type of family or lifestyle, and taxes have a big part of this. So you see a lot of inbound movement from what I call like the book ends of California and New York. Doesn't mean people aren't moving to California and New York. They are. But I think when you see this hot market inbound, there's a lot of reasons why, and I don't actually see that stopping. It's a great opportunity for any owners of business on this call to rethink the way that you're approaching your employees and embrace that type of opportunity, because we've never had it before. And it kind of rolls into the whole moratorium thing, right? We've seen this moratorium on foreclosures that now just got kicked to October. And some of the experts I've talked to are saying that could actually go the end of the year. We're anticipating that lift soon, but let me start with you, Justin. How do you anticipate this is going to impact the Arizona market once the moratorium on foreclosures is lifted?
To be determined. I think there's enough value in the homes at this point that people should be okay. They should be able to get out. A lot of people have a ton of equity. We've seen substantial increase in prices. So if they do need to sell the homes, I think they should be able to sell the homes. Now it'd be a welcome influx of inventory because, as you said, we get a lot of people moving here from California, Oregon, Washington, East Coast, Midwest, et cetera, and they just keep coming. So we actually need the homes on the market.
Justin hit, before I go to you, Nate and Rob, Justin hit on a very important point there that gets glossed over. I've heard so many references that COVID and the moratoriums will be compared to the 2008 financial crisis. Everyone on this call, I can 100% guarantee you, no comparison. What happened in the financial crisis was a credit crisis. It wasn't what's happening right now. The HPA that Justin mentioned, 18 to 25% in some of these areas, will end up being the savior for a lot of these people that were otherwise facing foreclosure. We know that because we not only have the optics of the thousands of loans we do, but we have the optics of an NPL business, as well as Wedgwood, which is one of the largest fix and flippers in the nation. Nate, how are you seeing the moratoriums being lifted affecting SoCal?
No, I don't think in Southern California it's going to affect. The prices have gone up and up. I think even if there are, landlords who, let's say they haven't paid their mortgage or haven't been able to because the people aren't paying, I think that the prices have exceeded what their payment backup would be. I think that there will be an influx of inventory. I think the inventory will be sucked up right away. I don't think it's going to, I think the inventory is going to be tight even after the moratorium's lifted. So, what I'm telling my investors is, hey, you got to diversify a little bit, and you got to be a little maybe slimmer on your margins and look at some things like that. So I totally agree. I think the nation is shifting. I agree with you, Bill. I think the nation, a portion of it is shifting. We have Scorpion here in our town, and I've moved probably 10 of those younger kids to places like Colorado Springs, El Paso, Texas, places like that, where they're making $100,000 salary, but here in Southern California, that puts them in a 1-2 bedroom condo. Now they're buying a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Colorado Springs for $350,000. So I think that shift is happening. And I think that, Bill, to be honest with you, that's the biggest opportunity we have as investors, is shifting our money into these, what I call them, B areas, or let's say secondary cities. Maybe it's not Dallas, it's El Paso. It's not, maybe Albuquerque, places like that where people are moving. They can live, they can buy a house for $250,000, $300,000, $350,000 when they sell their condo in other places. And it's really opening it up.
Thank you. Rob, what about you? What do you think the moratorium does in your area?
To be honest with you, I don't see, I see little to no impact. There's so much movement in terms of investors and just people in general buying. There's such a great shortage of inventory in various price points and sectors. We have a ton of multifamily developers that are here operating in Houston, buying up land and starting new projects. So I don't, I have not heard anything from my network and my circle of colleagues where that's even going to be a point of contention.
Yep.
So and even like I was looking at property in Austin last week, and they're selling multifamily developments at negative cap rates, just because there's very little inventory in that space. Right. And because of that, those properties are appreciating at a high rate. So I don't, from my perspective and those that, around me, we don't see that being an impact or having a great impact here in Houston.
One thing that people tend to overlook when they think about foreclosures is whether or not the state is a judicial or non-judicial state. And just the simple explanation for the two differences: on a judicial, the foreclosure timelines are much longer to get that asset back. And on a non-judicial, much shorter. Like Arizona and California, very similar. You have a 90-day redemption period, 21-day publication period. So 111 days, barring any shenanigans by the borrower of BKs or filings or any restraints that are filed. That's about the time frame. And in Texas, as you know, it's probably the shortest timeframes. They have the Super Tuesdays, where they're actually holding the foreclosure sales the first Tuesday of every month. You get yourself into a state like New York. New York could take 2 to 3 years to get the property back. So it's entirely different. But listen, the three of you are on this panel because you're leaders in your space and that space in that state. And I kind of think it's all about mindset. So if you don't mind, like briefly, each one of you kind of throw out the mindset approach to what makes you or separates you from the flock in your area. And if you don't mind, I'd start with you, Justin.
Sure. So, mindset's extremely important in this market because it's a tough market. So, I think, quite frankly, I've kind of gone back to grassroots approach. I'm trying to find my clients' properties. You've had to go back to things like door knocking in the certain neighborhoods. The mailers are out there. Everybody's trying to get things off market to provide people with more opportunities. So you just gotta, keep people moving forward and keep them aggressive. I've picked up clients from other agents that, put in offers on 20 homes and didn't get them, and strong offers. And it's just because you got to go that extra mile, develop a relationship with the listing agent, et cetera. Long story short, your realtor matters in this market, big time, as far as acquiring assets and having the network in order to do so, preferably before they even hit the market.
Yeah, the Justin experience I would share with all of you is my older son moved from Oregon to Arizona, and he had worked with a handful of local realtors trying to find a property in the hottest market in the history of Arizona. And he was just getting bounced from offer to offer as high as 10% over list price. And he ended up bumping into Justin because Justin is partners with one of our biggest investors in the area. And one of the things I noticed about you, Justin, that you failed to mention about yourself was your listening and communication skills were amongst the best I'd ever seen. And what I mean by that is you really honed in on what was important for this particular buyer and where their wiggle rooms were. And you just were as tenacious as I've ever seen from the sideline looking in. And you weren't showing them stuff that you knew wasn't going to fit the box. And so I do think in your particular case, in my one example, you were a great listener. You took copious notes, and then you communicated the nuances as you went through before you ended up landing them a property. So congrats on that. Rob, what about your mindset?
Well, I think, mindset for me is important. It's kind of what sets the tempo and the tone for anything and everything that you set out to do. So I never think when I'm taking on a project or a task that is something that I can't accomplish, even if I don't have all the resources or all the pieces of the puzzle. And, years ago in the beginning stages of my career, that was a challenge, right? Because sometimes, we want to take on a project, we want to take on a deal, we want to take on some sort of initiative, but we don't have everything in place. And so that can be fearful to a certain extent. But when you start taking steps in the direction towards accomplishing, and you don't let what you don't have or what you don't know deter your motivation or your mindset, if you will, if you're determined, then what happens is things start falling into place, people start crossing your path, information starts becoming available. And it's, for me, mindset's like a muscle, right? So the more you exercise that, the stronger it gets, to where you get to a point where it doesn't matter what you're trying to accomplish. You just start falling into line, moving in the direction of what it is that you're trying to do. And the more successes you have, the easier it is to take on new challenges and to overcome obstacles. So mindset for me is everything. Everything, your body, your spirit, what you eat, everything starts with your mindset.
Yeah, I think one of the things I appreciated most about you when I got to know you, Rob, is the word senses comes to mind when I think about you, because you started in the subprime business right into the financial collapse. And when the financial collapse happened, you looked to your left and to your right, and you wanted to see what was left of what had just been destroyed. And FHA kind of came about. And so you dove into FHA and you learned that business and you ran that. And then you started seeing some of the financial crisis remnants of short sales come up, and you said, I need to know more about that. And you became an expert on that, and then said, maybe this is where my calling is, and got your real estate and broker's license, and then went that way. And when I think about you, like, there's probably 4 or 5 more chapters in your book, your life book, but it is really about having a sense for where the market is, and then seizing those opportunities. And it's a special story. We could have a different industry insights for you on that, but thank you for sharing. And then, Nate, before you answer the question, tenacious. Like, I know you served in the armed forces. What you also don't know about Nate is we had one of the most bloody shootouts in police history in North Hollywood, when the guys had the AKs and they were walking. He was in that. And He tells a crazy story, but there's nobody in real estate that I've met that is as tenacious as Nate. There's no buildings big enough to stand in front of him or or fences to keep them away from any opportunities. You've managed to build a really large organization from scratch. So tell us how Mindset has worked in relation to that.
Right, Bill. So here's what I did. I took a very practical approach. So what I was looking at was, when I was talking before, my thing now is education, flexibility, and diversity. Okay. And what I mean, that was for myself first. And I've done that over, okay, and also for my clients. So the way I'm trying to change that, I had to change my mind. Change my mindset and change my clients is look, the shift, like Bill, you said, I'm going to go back to it. The shift of the country, people are moving into different areas that they've never done before. So there's a shift of wealth that's going from the California and New York and Miami and Chicago. Those places are going into these small cities that are smaller cities, maybe of 400,000 or 500,000 cities. So what I did with my investors and what I've been doing is I made relationships across the country with the top agents who knew where all these properties were. So I took a little different approach. So what I tell my guys, for instance, here I'm selling 2 condos for $650,000 each, and we're buying 5 houses in El Paso, Texas. Okay, right beside Fort Bliss, which is the biggest. The second biggest Army base. So what I had to do was shift my mindset and try to educate my investors to, hey, look, we can take this California money. We can go to these places where you're going to see this massive equity growth over time because of the way the country is shifting with where people are moving. So I think, as far as mindset, it was taking a very practical approach. So, I've got agents in Albuquerque, El Paso, all over the place. So when I have somebody that's got something to sell, I'm going to that local expert that I trust and know. And I think that was the big key. And they're able to do the construction. They're able to do everything. So then when I have the trust of my investors, then they trust me and they're like, oh, okay, Nate, well, that sounds good. And they're not selling everything out of California. I don't want to give that impression, but we are diversifying some of those offbeat properties and buying in other places. So I think that's the mindset change that I had to do to be able to relay that onto my investors.
Yeah, one of the nutty parts about our space right now, when it comes to renovations and construction, is the massive change that's taken place, whether that be inventory or cost or whatever. And so, Rob, let me start with you. Are you seeing any different trends in your area as it relates to renovations and construction? And what's your advice to investors who are looking to flip or build in that particular region?
Yeah, I mean, in general, over the past 3 years, what we're tuned into is cost, right? And so we've seen some incremental increases. More recently, I would say over the last, from first and second quarter of this year, those costs have increased dramatically. And so from that perspective, you really have to be tuned into, especially when you're doing a project, what your costs are, right? Because that can make or break the project, especially like in these urban infill areas. Because of the demand, land prices are increasing. And so I've seen where investors have bought land to develop, not factoring into the equation what it's going to cost to build that house or multifamily. And they get into the project and, they're surprised that there's no profitability there. So I think, what I've learned is you have to be diligent. You have to spend time researching, especially whatever it is that you're going to develop, or on the fix and flip, what it's going to take to renovate that property. A lot of times I've seen people where they just take estimates or guesstimates versus, getting every single contractor or trade that's going to be involved in that renovation to come out and physically walk the property and hand you an actual estimate on what it's going to take. You used to, in the past, a few years ago, say, okay, well, I just renovated 3, 4, 5 houses, this same square footage and size, and it cost me X. So I'm just going to assume that's the case. But today you can't do that because material prices, shortages, availability of materials are a moving target right now. So I think if there's any advice I would give to investors, you got to be overly diligent and overly thorough in your estimates, right? And what it's going to cost, whether you're building or renovating.
Current, not based on your last job.
Absolutely not. I can give you numerous examples of, in a 3-year period of time, I have one floor plan that we build, In 2019, the lumber and cornice package, which is basically all the wood that goes into the house, the OSB sheathing and the siding, was $30,000. That same house today, 2021, 3 years later, it's double in price. So, you know, there's no way you're going to say, okay, well, I built this house last year or the year before and it cost me 30 grand. So today that's the same price.
Yeah, agreed. Nate, real quick, and then I'll get to you, Justin.
Yeah, Bill, since Justin spoke on that, I think what I've been trying to really focus on is the turnaround time. So maybe we're, is having a definite contractor that's not going to bail on you, because obviously that is a really big deal, especially when it's out of the area. So the turnaround time is something, but yeah, the cost of materials, and you can get stuck really easy. So I think just making sure somebody, look, do you have the materials? Do you have you done work with them before? So the relationship aspect of it is super, super important. So, but yeah, you can get stuck just really fast. You know, one guy abandons a job and you have to hire somebody else. It takes a month to get the guy up to speed. So a lot of times I'll look for kind of couples. If you really look, there's a lot of real estate agents where maybe the wife is the listing agent and the husband's a contractor. Maybe they both have real estate licenses. So I really like those types of people, because if we have multiple deals for them, they seem to really, hey, this is my top priority because Nate's going to bring me somebody else. So the turnaround time is the key, what I've been really trying to focus on.
Yeah, and Justin, I'm going to get you, but from personal experience, what I would tell everyone, like my number one thing when doing a project, my number one is pay your contractors a little bit ahead of expectation. Be the guy that's calling, asking, do you need a draw payment? Don't wait for them and then string those people along, because these contractors have multiple jobs and they're going to go to where the cash is. So obviously you want to be properly capitalized on a particular job. And you can even give those contractors incentives to hit their marks a little bit sooner. So the attention as they have 4 or 5 projects is really on yours. And then the other thing, and I promise Justin, I'm coming, is it even makes sense to get a small storage facility and get your materials ahead of time because of the lags. Like when we went to wood flooring, we did that like a month and a half ahead of time because we just didn't know whether or not that was going to be available when our contractors and when the job was ready to go. So I do think take care of your contractors and get your material ahead of time are 2 ways to not just manage costs, but also manage the duration of the job. Justin, real quick on renovations and construction, today's market.
I got to say, you just gave some very, very sound advice, Bill. I think that, you get a lot more bees with honey with the contractors, right? You want to keep them interested in you and keep them moving forward, because they do have 17 other jobs they're probably doing, and you could get pushed back. And as we know, time is money. As far as new construction, at least here in Arizona, at the price it costs to build, it's almost not worth it anymore. We don't have the margins. Things aren't selling for $1,000, $1,500 a foot like maybe they are in Southern California. Things in our nicer neighborhoods are selling in the $500 to $750 a foot, and it's costing us roughly $450 to $550 to build. That's before you landscape. So you have a decent sized lot. The margins just aren't there. Now the renovations, I think is a little more accessible, a little more attainable. I haven't seen the prices, for luxury vinyl plank and things like that. Things that are kind of common in these mid-range homes go up astronomically yet. And if you pick the right one, the lead times aren't too crazy. But again, Bill, sound advice and getting your materials up front, putting them in storage so they're ready to go, and you'll get the job done much faster.
I'm going to stick with you, Justin, and then go the other way. I want to talk rental real quick. We have at Civic, we watched the rental market of the loans that we provide our investors go from 10% of the UPB, all of our unpaid balance dollars that we lend out. And that's going to be $1.7 billion this year, 10% to 1/3 of our business and rising, like overnight. And it seems to be such a strong strategy right now for investors. I know, Rob, and we're going to get to you. You were telling me a little bit about yours. But starting with you, Justin, any sage advice about transitioning from fix and flip to more of a rehab and hold?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's always advantages to the hold, especially here in Arizona. What we're seeing is a lot of people coming out of places, other states with higher capital gains tax rates, 1030, wanting their money into properties here, holding them here for the long term. And then when they do finally dispose of those assets, they're coming out at like a 2% capital gains tax rate as opposed to a 9% in a lot of these other areas. Not only that, but here in Arizona, we've developed a huge demand for VRBOs. Not only are we a winter destination, we're also a huge bachelorette party destination in the summers. And some people are just gluttons for punishment and like to come out here and enjoy the heat, sit in the sun for a few days. So that market, when well managed, can exponentially raise, your income. So instead of running your place for, let's say, $3,000 a month, now you're getting 200 a night. So the margins are much, much higher.
The CNBC yesterday, if you want to go online and look at yesterday's show that they had in the morning, they were talking about the highest rental rates in the United States. Do you know that Gilbert year over year was number one at 24% increase in rentals?
Wow.
And a big surprise in Arizona, Gilbert 24%. Like it makes sense why people are migrating to that type of opportunity. Real quick, Rob, your thoughts on this?
I think the build to rent and renovate to rent model is phenomenal, and it's something that we transition to, not 100%, but ultimately it will be 100% of what we do. And the areas that we target are those areas that are in the pathway of development. So you have submarkets that are already mature and stabilized, if you will. And then you have these adjacent areas that are slowly transitioning. And so those are the areas that we target for both land and also renovation opportunities, because we know the appreciation is coming, and you can purchase at a price point that allows you to do two things. One, to create that value, and then three, there's appreciation a few years down the road. And so my strategy is simple. It's either if I can't buy something I can renovate, then I'm buying land that I can build, either a duplex or a single family home, get it up and running, and then turn around, refi, and cash out, capture some of my equity free of capital gains tax, and then deploy that into the next project. And there's tons of opportunity here in Houston for that. There's tons of opportunity in other cities in Texas. And the partnership with Civic has given us even more excitement, enthusiasm to kind of ramp up speed in that space.
Thank you for that. Nate, thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I have moved a ton of my folks for the longer generational wealth haul. Basically, it's interesting that they mentioned the VRBO. What I basically do, I have a company where I actually just rent the house from the person when I sell it to them, and then basically what I do is come in, stage the property, paint it, and then I have the list of the insurance companies and all these types of things for short-term housing. So we'll actually sublease that property for 2 months, 3 months, short term, things like that. So it eases my investors. It eases their pain. Hey, I'm going to get my rent. Nate signs the lease, but then I'm turning around and leasing out to the State Farm employee whose house just got flooded, and they come in and they do it that way. And then there's a premium paid. So I'm trying to take as many people as I can. I know people need to do that fix and flip, and they need to do that to get that, to pay your bills. You have to make money when you want to do that. But as many people as I can get to long-term hold the property, that's what I've been doing. And then by them trusting me to rent it out for them and take care of the property, and my name's on the list, they're not going to get screwed over by by somebody not paying their rent. And since COVID, people not paying their rent, that's not what people never thought about that before. So now that's a big part of an industry that you can really capitalize on if you have a good contract. So I totally agree. The buy and hold is the key right now, because appreciation is still going to be there.
Yeah, one of our, real quick, I have two other questions I want to make sure we get to before we go to Q&A. But one of our clients, we have a team in Pennsylvania. They buy 25 to 30 properties a month. In this strategy, from a rental perspective, clean it up, and put it in their portfolio, have it cash flow, and to Rob's earlier point, enjoy some appreciation over time. It's like, it's an incredible strategy, and we're just seeing it happen more and more. You don't have to buy 25, you buy one, you get that one working. And then if you have some appreciation, you can pull some cash out and go get you another one and rinse and repeat. Important question here. Like everyone knows, and there's been lots of different reports, from 4 million to 6 million homes under inventory to meet the supply and demand of housing. That's nationwide. I've heard 4, I just heard 6.2 the other day. So let's just say 4 to 6. So when it comes to getting the deal done for your investor clients, what types of gaps do you help them fill, or they can fill on their own to allow them to be most successful? And this could be financing or collaborations or JVs or whatever. Nate, I ended with you. I'm starting with you.
Yeah, great. And Bill, what you said, you said it already. It's the relationship you have with the agent or the seller on the other side that where you come up front. It's the relationship you have so you can fill those gaps. So to get the deal, there's a lot of people out there that's got the money to buy the transaction, but the person has to trust you. They have to feel that it's going to be. A lot of these sellers are in a bad spot. They know you're making a profit on the property. So it's all about the attitude and the way you approach it. And with the other agents on the other end, there's lots of times that, we'll do fees or extra stuff to keep those relationships going. So I think it's all relational, and I think you just have to be really in it. You just can't submit an offer with everybody else's that's typed really nice. You got to get on the phone. I try to get everybody I can, either right on a Zoom or I send them a video. Every time I speak to somebody I'm trying to buy a house from, whether it's a seller or an agent, as soon as I hang up, I send them a video. Hey, I appreciate it. That video message is a connection. They feel like they talk to you face to face, and it's those relationships that'll put the deals together every single time.
You actually do that when we just have basic meetings too, which is great. No one else does that with me. I do think it's special, and certainly you stand out because of it. What about you, Rob? We got to get a deal done, low inventory. What are you doing to help investors win?
That's a great question. And it almost just kind of happened for us, at least by default. So I never like to bring somebody into a scenario where I haven't had success in that space, right? So if I'm presenting an opportunity to somebody, it's because I myself personally or my team, that's what we're doing. And so the gap is just having available opportunities to present to people who are interested. So you have some of our collaborators, some of our partners, investors are, corporate America employees. They make good incomes. They know they want to diversify, and they want to invest in real estate because they're jumping on, webinars like this and other resources online, but they don't have the technical expertise, right? They understand numbers, they can analyze, they understand whether or not something makes sense from a financial perspective, but the actual execution, or even just knowing that they're in the right spot for that particular opportunity, that's what we bring to the table. And for us, it's easy because we're operating already in those spaces. So it's not like we're saying, hey, come to this section or this area, and we've never even done a project there. So I like to stay focused on areas that I'm proficient in and projects that I've seen through completion multiple times. And then just, working with people who are receptive and open and have the right mindset so that we can all be successful together.
Justin, you with me?
Yes, sir. I'm there. So yeah, I gotta emulate a lot of what Nate and Rob just said. I've never done the video thing before. Nate, that's cool. I might steal that one from you.
That's your nugget today.
Yeah, that's my nugget. No, but I'm just like you. If you're going in for, representing a buyer, I've researched, where the listing agent went to high school, what their hobbies are, et cetera, any kind of common ground to differentiate yourself. Because even though you might not be the highest of the 15 offers, sometimes they'll give you a nudge and say, hey, if you could get up to X, we can get this deal done. People, they want two things. I think they want price and they want security. Because another thing that we're seeing is a lot of people tie properties up and then back out. So if you can give them the confidence that your client's going to see the deal through, I think you're more likely to win the deal. And then, more and more, like I think Rob was saying, I've aligned with several builders, with general contractors. Bill, when Brandon was buying a house out here, He bought a house that he didn't love, but we created a picture for him. Had a general contractor in there the next day. You guys flew out for a day, picked the materials, and that house is gorgeous now, 30 days after purchase, 45 days after purchase. So helping people have vision, because I think that's truly where the opportunity is seeing things that other people don't. And being able to make that come to fruition, whether that be a remodel or, aligning with builders, because builders always have lots and tear down homes in their back pocket that they would potentially sell. So it's just about maintaining the network and finding as many opportunities as possible.
Yeah, and if you listen to what all three said, like I know there's thousands of books written on transactional versus relational, and everyone takes their sides, and some will argue that it's really both. And no one would disagree on this call that when you buy a piece of real estate, the actual act of buying and closing is a transaction. We all agree with that. But what gets that transaction done and then has the opportunities to emulate and multiply in the future is relational. And whether you're solving a finance problem, a vendor problem, a contractor problem, a communication problem, whatever it is, if you can solve as many of those challenges for your customer, you have a customer for life. Like it's a creed that I have kept close to my heart from the day I started in this business. And it's one that we put forth as our number one objective every single thing we do. Like Civic, we joke all the time. We're not just rating fee. We have like 16 people in marketing, and the marketing isn't just for Civic. It's for our investors so they can market their stuff. It's for our brokers and realtors so they can market the stuff on our dime. Technology, let them use the technology so they can push their products on our dime. That's our version of trying to make it relational. So I do think that what Rob, Nate, and Justin said all applies to everything that you're all thinking about as it relates to real estate buying or selling. We have 7 minutes. I have one last question. I wanted to ask individually. So all three of you aren't going to ask just one apiece, and then we'll go Q&A. Real quick, Justin, to be a successful buyer's agent, summarize it up in like a paragraph.
Be aggressive. And in relationships, like you were just saying, go the extra mile. You can't just turn in an offer and pray. That's not the way this works. Develop a relationship, get in front of the people, try to get a face-to-face meeting at an open house if you can, anything to make it more personal. Rob,
What are you passionate about and why?
I'm passionate about creating opportunities where I can bring in multiple people that play the role to help create that, to help bring that opportunity to fruition, right? So the relationships, the collaborations, and the more that you do that successfully, the greater that sphere becomes, and it's easier for you to accomplish things, right? It's easier for you to tackle projects and accomplish your goal, ultimately to leave something. Legacy is what I call it, right? To leave something for your family so that in the next generation, they don't have to work as hard or struggle to live and lead a successful life.
And Nate, we've known each other a long time, and we talk about this all the time, market experience and relationships, probably more about relationships than any other thing you and I talk about professionally. In a sentence or two, why is that important to you?
I just think you have to you don't look at the deal, you look at the person in the situation. And when you do that and you look at it like it's a long-term relationship, I try to look at everything, as you know, Bill, everything as a marathon, not just what am I going to get out of it today and leave. So if you treat that person, you treat that agent, you treat that investor, you treat that seller like you're going to see him again and again. And almost like that's a family relationship, that's when you'll really win. And, all deals don't work out, but when you do that, there's another one coming. So as long as you stick with that, and I love the statement that the gentleman made about creating the vision. That's my nugget that I took away. What I need to do is help more of my people understand the vision of where we can take them with not being stuck in their little box, with expanding, right? So I really like that. That's probably my nugget for today.
Awesome. Gina, do you have any questions? Because if you don't, I have a couple that popped up on my end.
You go ahead.
I'll go first. We'll go back and forth.
Yep.
I want to make sure everyone gets heard. We got a little bit of time.
Sounds good.
This one was, of all the recommendations you can give somebody, what's your stamp you want to leave everyone with, Justin?
Oh, what's the stamp I want to leave everybody with, huh? That's a tough one. I don't know. I guess just that I give it my best, I guess. I don't.
I'm going to answer it for you, Justin, because I got to experience it from the sidelines. I just think communication is the lubrication to all problems. And that guy is a master communicator in a very tenacious market where cash buyers 10% over with no contingencies were losing. And so I personally believe your stamp of all the people I've dealt with on the real estate side, buying and selling, is communication. It's super. You can't overstate the importance of communicating clearly with your customers. And I think you do an excellent job. Nate, would you have a stamp?
I think a stamp. Oh, sorry, Bill. I think a stamp of what I'd probably like to just leave your investors with is the fact that just open up your mind to there's more ways to do it than what you've been used to doing. And I think if everybody just sits and thinks just for a couple of minutes, okay, look at the way I've done my business since I started. And how do I open up my mind to different ideas? Because there's a lot of ways to win, right? We've talked about that. There's 10 different ways to win, but you got to pick a couple. So try maybe a couple of those other ones. So open up your mind, be creative, be diligent, but think about other ways to make it work for you. I think that's what I've been able to do lately. And I think it's really helped a lot of people. And I hope that the people on here would think that way as well.
Awesome. Rob, quickly, a thought?
Resource. Early in my career, when I was trying to figure out how to do things, I ran into a lot of people who would not help me with information or guidance, tutelage, if you will. And as a result of that, I kind of developed this inclination towards just giving people an overabundance of information at no cost, right? It was just an interaction, and I would pour into them information that I learned because I had these aha moments where I would figure out something. And I was like, aha, that's how you do that. And I'd want to race to tell people because I felt like it was important that everybody knew. And over time, that's what's kind of helped me be successful, is because people come to me to discuss opportunities, not expecting that I'm going to provide them with information that if we never did business together, they could still leverage that and accomplish something. So when it's all said and done, I'd like to think that people would look at me as a valuable resource.
Awesome. Gina, any new ones on your end that we should address?
Yes, specifically from the shoes that you guys stand in working with investor clients specifically, there are just a lot of barriers when it comes to acquiring new properties, especially for newer investors. And so I'm trying to summarize most of the questions into one here to get coverage. What would you say is your nugget of advice for those people who are wanting to invest, but just having different barriers when it comes to getting their properties?
I'll start, if you don't mind. It'll be a sentence. Just make sure you align yourself with a professional in that space, in that particular area, that whose sole focus is to serve your investment needs. It's if you have nothing, no relationships, no contacts, and you're ready to get going, you want to align yourself with the best. And Google is an unbelievable first step to starting to learn about the professionals in your area. Rob, take it away.
Yeah, I think Bill, what you said is it hits home. I think you have to find people that are doing what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and in doing that, you're able to uncover the next steps or the information or the pathway, if you will, to accomplishing whether it's a project or a transaction, or if you're trying to raise money or obtain financing. And in today's world, technology is amazing. You have so much reach and resource, just by getting online. So I would say that leveraging other people's experience and expertise is definitely a smart move.
Did Nate or Justin want to add to that? If not, I'll try and grab another question.
Yeah, I'll add to it real quick, and I'm not gonna try to repeat what he just said. That's great. You find, you Google me, Santa Clarita Real Estate, Valencia, any of the city where I'm at, I'm #1 on Google every time. All right, so you can check it, but that doesn't mean that individual person does just what you need. So take your time, find the professional, but really the first thing you should do is get your financing worked out. I know there's a lot of great lenders at Civic. I use Chris Lashina. He's great with me, but I'm just saying, get your financing and get your numbers, and then find that person who's willing to work with you. Because there's some people who might say on the phone, I'm willing to work. But if it's going to take a lot of work, they just kind of distance themselves. So I would agree. Find the right people. You need your lender, you need your agent, and then hopefully they will have the contractors. If they don't, then you go to your contractors. But it's getting your team. Think of them as your team, getting your team together.
Yep. Justin, any thoughts, or was that covered?
Only thing I'd add is just, be comfortable with the base hits. It doesn't always have to be a home run. A couple base hits are going to get you a lot further. You're going to strike out a lot less. So if you're having barriers, maybe accept a slightly lower margin. If you have to bring in more partners to help you and make it a more secure investment, do it. But get out there and play.
One question that came in was specific to ground up development. Bill, do you want to touch on that?
What was the question?
Sorry, just specifically if it's something that we do, and if that's anything that you wanted to touch on as far as the relationships on the panel.
I don't think that we've covered that with the 3 panelists right now. So I'd take another question. Tell me who asked that, and I'll take that offline. Any others?
What mid-markets are you seeing your clients move to, and why?
I'll start just because I deal with employees. South Carolina, Tennessee, Arizona, Vegas, Texas, Florida. Yeah, I think those 6 or 7 cover my experience. Nate?
Yeah, I'll even narrow it down to 3 that I'm really working in is Kansas City and Oklahoma. So in Oklahoma City, and then El Paso, Texas, and Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm having really good luck there. And I think that's just because of the people that I have. It's just a relational thing. We're making money those 3 places, and it's easy to get in with 75, 80 grand because you're buying places for 250, 300, 400 grand. So it's you don't have to hit a home run it doesn't have to be $1 million investment every time you flip a property or you buy and hold.
Rob?
For us, it's just Texas. Everybody's moving to Texas, Austin, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio.
Justin?
Yeah, here, and the only other one I really didn't hear mentioned was Boise, Idaho. Seems to have
you're right.
Huge following. So a lot of people heading that way.
Yeah, remember again, right? Lower cost of living, lower taxes, dollar stretches further. Zoom and Microsoft Teams allows you to do your job the way you had to do it in a cubicle or in an office. And it's changed the world. Of all the horrible things that have happened with COVID and the trauma left behind, there's been some good things that have happened, and being able to move your family to a better lifestyle and have the dollar stretch and put more in the bank might be just one of those. It's just the crazy thing on how the world works. Gina, any others?
The last question that we have is, how much time do you spend waiting on a property that has multiple offers where the seller seems to be stalling and waiting to get better offers?
Justin, start with that.
Oh, it's a tough one because you're at their mercy. But I always try to, if I have a strong buyer, cash buyer, I'm always trying to bully, create some kind of fictitious deadline. They've got to move on this other property. If this one isn't going to work, you're the #1 choice. But if you allow more offers to come in, conditions at play, the lower your chances are. So that's my approach.
Rob?
Yeah, I think along the lines of what Justin said, we've done, because we wear both hats, where we represent buyers as well as represent ourselves in buying property, and like where land is at play. A lot of times, especially in this climate, you know, owners of land feel like they can get more. And so, you know, you just have to be aggressive and diligent. You know, if it's a great deal, offer more, right? So I think all of that is we share the same perspective in that realm.
Nate, thoughts?
Yeah, I basically have never, and different people have different negotiating strategies. I never have had luck playing the hard line. So what I always do is with the agent, I'll use a lot of humor. I'll use a lot of, hey, I've got a team of 13 here. If you need me to go and do open up for you, if you need anything carried away out of the house, I'll offer little extras that makes that agent's life easier. Okay. So I've had really good luck doing that. Oh, you don't need to come up here. You're 30 miles away. I've got a whole team that can open up for inspection and let in and get the pictures or do whatever we need to do at the time. So I usually do that, and I'll just stay on them and I send them the video but I do it in a funny way. So they're not just hating me. Right. But it actually has worked for me very well. Let's just take Nate's offer. He's trying really super hard. That's kind of the way. I've just never had good luck playing the hard line, but I do have with my investor. You know, I'll say, hey, this is our cutoff. Look, let's put our best foot forward. What's the most we can pay for this property? And then it is what it is. And I'll try my humor. And if it doesn't work, we move on to the next one. And we don't think that because we lose one deal that it's going to end the world. We find another one.
Yeah. And I look, I'm not a realtor, but I've done enough deals myself as an investor and had representation where how I would approach it is if you either have cash to do it or you've JV'd cash to do it, cash is king, because you eliminate all the surprises related to financing. You could get your financing after you get your asset. So it's a short period of time. Minimize the contingencies, right? You don't want, if there's nicks and knacks throughout the house, eat that. And if, in a lot of cases, if you can close in 7 days, renting back to the person that just sold you for a period of time so they can get their affairs in order. In my experience, cash, quick closings, easy contingencies, rent back for, like the last deal I did, I rented back 60 days for zero. I took all the negative thoughts that could have possibly been in that seller's mind. Close in 7 days, all cash, no contingencies other than the inspection. I didn't care about the appraisal. I knew the market myself, and rent back for 60 days. Like, what? Right. And I think we paid a little over ask. And there was 12 people behind us, and I wanted them I did the strong ball, Nate. I wanted an answer in 24 hours because I didn't want them to look through all the other offers and contemplate. I wanted them to recognize it was a good, fair offer with some extra benefits that was good for their family. And so I think I use a little bit of what all of you guys do, but it's competitive out there, and you got to separate yourself from the masses some way. And I can tell you, just having a great credit report, though important for financing, alone doesn't win deals the way it used to.
Bill, I'll echo one thing that you said that has had the best luck for me. And it's not even that much money. It's the free rent back. There's something in somebody's mind when they get to live into a house for 30, 45, 60 days, even if it's only $3,000, it's only $6,000. They would rather have that security. That is I use it all the time. And that's probably, like you said, it's little things like that don't even cost that much to get you where you want to go.
Yep. Gina, I know we're running over. Any must answers, or you want to wrap?
No, we are at time. We did have a couple additional questions, but we can always reach out to those people individually. This has been wonderful.
And how are you going to share? Could you let everyone know how you're going to share Nate and Rob and Justin's information?
Of course. So in the chat panel, I have gone ahead and published out all of the contact information for Justin, Rob, and Nate to reach out to them directly. So before the meeting ends, if you want to just pop in there, you can quickly copy paste anything over. And we will also be sending a follow-up email to you to reiterate how to get in touch with Nate, Rob, and Justin directly. Really appreciate all of you guys joining today. You gentlemen have given us
You guys were awesome.
A breadth of knowledge. This has been wonderful.
Great.
Yeah,
thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month. Appreciate
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Appreciate y'all.
Take care.
Bye-bye.